Hello and welcome to the Handsome Ansem podcast. Today is episode 9 and my name is Richard and I'm sitting here with Willie. If you can watch with your eyes and listen with your ears, then you can hopefully learn the lessons. I don't know this bit that I'm doing. I don't know why I'm doing it.
Keep going.
But this ties me into what I want to talk about today. Being a D student, and no, I'm not trying to make a joke about it. Right, so this comes from being aDhD. I think if anyone follows me on any of the socials, they'll see that the content that I'm making is aDhD before. Because I was talking to my neighbor. She's just recently discovered that she's OCD, right?
Yeah.
She's got obsessive compulsive disorder. And I said to her, the new way of thinking is that's neurodivergent thinking.
Tell me more.
Because neurodivergent thinking is really my way of explaining it, also because I watched Divergent literally the other day. And guess what? The ADHD kids, they got ostracized, and the OCD kids, they got ostracized because they don't fit the neurotypical way of thinking, how society wants us to think, which is really, really cool. So I explained to her.
I just got that film right now.
Oh, shit, only now.
Yeah.
That's fine. So you'll come around. Don't worry. ADHD, ADD.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. I don't know. D. But anyways,
It's the sound my modem used to make back in the day. Yeah.
Is it?
What is
had like a 50cc and it went like very high rather than just.
You're uncontrollable on that level.
I'm firing on all cylinders. Anyways, so getting back to my neighbor, I was talking to her and explained to her why this is a superpower. Is because neurotypical humans think a certain way, right? And across the board, they were taking the neurotypical readings was taken more from factory workers, right?
Okay.
People that are able to perform a task over and over and over again and think a certain way, and that became the norm. So because these other people, ADHD, ADD, OCD, all the Ds, because it's a deficiency, right? It's a disorder, all right? That's why I'm saying I like to be a D student. It's because of that, I think it's a superpower because we get to see things from a different point of view. We get to interact with the world in a very, very different way to neurotypical humans. And I was just trying to reassure her that it's not, there's nothing wrong with you. It's really just a superpower. We're all X-Men.
That's right. Muted and proud, right?
Yeah.
I love that idea.
Absolutely. I think, that's also one of the reasons why soort soek soort, for those people who don't speak Afrikaans, like searches or seeks for like. And I think that's also one of the reasons why, we get along is because, we call it like creative thinking, but I think, largely it's just because we see the world a little bit differently.
I believe so. I think that what you mentioned just before we went on this podcast is that being disorderly, being divergent really makes you more pirate. And I think that's been a kind of running theme on this podcast is this idea of just being pirate.
Well, I mean, it already started because I read that book, Be More Pirate. And it made so much sense to me with the society that they were trying to create back in the golden age of pirates. And I think that's also something that's like a credo. That's our pirate manifesto that we try and live every single day.
I love that. I love the, and I don't know as much as I should know about pirates. But, as we explained before in one of the previous podcasts, it was really just about, sort of being, we say rebels, rapscallions against the East India Trading Company, right? Which was the institutions of the day. So I think that the most important thing for us is that if you are, one of those people that fall into those spaces whereby you are being ostracized or alienated because of your ADHD or because of your OCD, or because you're a D student, or because someone has told you that you're quite deficient in something.
Say D again.
You have to be a student of the D.
Tenacious out of control. Who is going to watch this? Please watch this. What? And if you do like this kind of content, share it with someone else. Because people like us listen to podcasts like this. Does that make sense to you? If it does, you're our kind of person. I like that. Oh, you don't know that one? Oh, that's from Seth Godin, man.
Oh, really?
Seth Godin. He wrote because I'm still reading his book called "This Is Marketing," and he speaks about marketing. Sorry, I know we're changing direction like proper.
It's all right. It's kind of like when the Persians arrive in 300 and Gerard Butler is like, yes, marketing. Anyway, go ahead. I don't know where that came from.
And then what? He writes some coffee and makes the person fall into the pit.
Yeah.
Anyways,
He makes them a
so,
coffee.
so no, writing copy,
Oh,
not
copy.
a coffee.
No, I thought he was a barista.
Marketing, man. We will get through this podcast today, we promise.
We will.
So one of the things that Seth said in his book is he said, really, all that marketing is finding your tribe, right? Because that's what we're all trying to do. And when you're thinking about either a product or a service that you're trying to sell, and who are you actually talking to, one of the things to consider is, because we have this tribal nature about us, and we want to do things, it's more fun to do things together. So he says, try and think about it this way: is people like us do things like this, or people like us use products like this, or people like us do things like this for fun, And when you think about it that way, you really start to see the enjoyment factor that you can bring to life, to using different products, to, being a D student. People like us do things like this. People like us think slightly different, which is why we're trying to connect with all of you. Because we're hoping that you are people like us. Does that make sense?
I like people like you. Allow me just to say that.
Thanks.
Absolutely. You know when I realized this? I think I told you this last week.
It wasn't from my latest haircut. Now that you can all see my latest haircut,
Yeah.
let me explain it to you. I'm not exactly super thrilled about it because I look like Johan Cruijffwagen from SABC 2, die nuus,
There we go.
kanaal. My Afrikaans accent is not so good, but welkom by die nuus in vanaand. No, I can't.
Is he still alive?
I think he is, but his was a toupee. Mine is thankfully natural. But honestly, the problem that I have with it is I wanted something classic. I said to the lovely lady that helped me, I want to look handsome.
What did she look like?
That is irrelevant.
No, because
But
that will inform what classic means to her.
well, I mean, I guess I look handsome to her, which is great. Not my target market. My girlfriend's going to be very upset with this.
Look, I think it looks great. I don't think it looks like Johan Cruijffwagen. I know in the comments people can let us know if they're kind of getting that vibe. For me, it looks good. It looks good. But here's the point that I want. Here's the point that I want to make.
Oh,
I always thought he was a vampire because he never aged.
he didn't.
He didn't.
He didn't.
He just kind of segued out. He was just like, and then he was out.
Speaking about vampires,
Yeah.
it's like Keanu Reeves also hasn't aged.
Yeah, I can see that.
Hardly.
Hardly. He's 60 years old.
No, he's not. He's 760. That is the actual truth. I've seen his birth certificate. And similarly, Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise also doesn't.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
But okay, you bring up a great point because I've got
Vampirism.
yes. But that's a podcast.
Carry on.
We'll save those for Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
I've been having this conversation with Melissa because we're seeing a slew of young actors come onto the scene, and you being one of my favorite actors, if not my favorite actor.
I'll take the young part, thanks.
But you've seen a lot of young actors come into the fold, like Anya Taylor-Joy, Timothy Chalamet Ding Dong.
Hey, is that his surname?
That is his surname, Shamalama Ding Dong.
Hey,
That's what I call it.
already.
Have you seen the skit with Pete Davidson where he's like, skirt?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, you should check it out.
I will.
It's from SNL.
I will.
It's my reference point. My son's
Not a huge SNL fan. It's not kind of my brand of comedy. But not all of it. Some of it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, like, Dick in a Box. Oh, man.
Perfect.
Justin, thank you so much for you.
100%. The Andy Samberg stuff is great. But I love watching the outtakes of Ryan Gosling on SNL. That's the funniest thing.
I like him too. I do. I think he's great.
But coming back to that point, right? So when Gosling was cast in Barbie, did you just move your D to my mouth? I'm joking.
No, they can see what I just did. Because your mic technique needs.
I know my technique. You have to be a student so at the D.
All right.
So you got to go from the
Stop making those jokes.
Okay, fine. Here we go. So when Ryan Gosling was cast in Barbie,
Gents, you put up a camera and people act really weird.
absolutely. Before this
Look
mic
at
was
you.
going in my mouth.
Waleed is also a director. Sorry, we're all over the place today, but
Yeah.
Waleed is a director, so this is very new for him.
Absolutely.
That there's even a camera here.
Yeah. I feel
So we will
exposed
get
and
used to it, and yeah, because also we're trying to be economic.
Yeah.
So we have one camera that we're hoping to get 3 angles out of because I've watched too many YouTube tutorials about.
Yeah.
You should do that.
100%. I feel like Vin Diesel right now. I don't know what to do with my hands. Have you noticed that he's lost his ability to do anything with his hands lately in all his recent movies. Funny enough, because he was quite dexterous back in the day. But
Did he play piano?
well, when he came out in like Pitch Black, not came out in Pitch Black, but like,
Yeah, we know what you mean.
yeah,
Yeah, it's just all the D jokes that's confusing.
100%. Because his name is Richard B. Riddick. I don't know where I was going with that joke. There's 2 D's in Riddick. There we go.
Okay.
That's where I was going.
There it is. Back to Tom Cruise, man.
Okay.
Go.
So you've got all of these young actors coming out.
Mm.
And a lot of people are like, oh my God, Zendaya, Timothy Chalamet, ding dong. And for me, I always bemoan the fact that we haven't given sort of the actors of like Ryan Gosling, or let's say post Ryan Gosling, like more like the Channing Tatum era of actors, the breathing room that they required in order to kind of shine. So for instance, where everybody's like, oh, all hot on like, what is this new kid, Austin Butler? I love
Oh, yeah. I like him too.
but
Although I didn't like him in Dune. I thought he was great as Elvis, but man, also he did that TV show. I can't remember, Chronicles of, I don't know, some mythical land or whatever. I think he was good.
great actor. Here's my hot take. I did not like Dune Part 2 at all.
I mean, I enjoyed the film. It did feel like a part 2 to me.
But yes, this is the problem I'm speaking to, right? You know the reason why I didn't like the film?
Boy.
I cannot relate to Timothy Chalamet Ding Dong and Zendaya at all in that world. I'm just like, first of all, Zendaya's got an American accent in the middle of a planet where everybody else speaks with an accent.
Mm.
And I was like, where did you learn the American from? And you're not
a theme in a bunch of cinema and series these days. It doesn't speak to inclusivity for you, or is it distracting because it doesn't feel like it belongs in the world?
It feels like they're trying to shove certain actors down my throat who haven't earned their keep just yet. So for instance, I think that they're fine actors, but they're too wet beyond the ears for me. I'm like, somebody else in those roles would be much better. So my point being is that they haven't reached movie star status for you to be going, oh, you should pay attention to this because of them.
Okay.
Right? Because let's be honest about it, right? If you look at the people in their periphery, like, you've got Josh Brolin, you've got, Javier Bardem, you've got all of these actors who are like these great sort of veteran actors who deserve their respect. And then you've got this kind of soft center of these 2 actors. And I'm like, it doesn't hold together quite well.
Okay.
I don't feel like they carried the film. So even when you end the film on like Zendaya, I'm like, why should I care? I don't care. It's like, should I care because she's Zendaya or should I care because she's Chani?
So did it feel like they missed the mark on the story, or do you just feel like the faces that represented the characters didn't have enough gravitas for you?
Didn't have enough gravitas because the second that Timothy Chalamet Ding Dong, I'm going to keep calling him that.
That leads to story for me, because that means that the story, the creators of the story, did not give you enough of the characters for you to actually care.
But here's my point, right? The problem I have is that you've got all of these like tribal rogue type people. We mentioned tribe, right?
Yeah.
All these kind of like sand pirates, for lack of a better word, right? All those people who are like hardened by the elements. And then old porcelain face Timothy shows up and they're all like, oh, Isan al-Haib. And I'm like, why would they follow him? If they've got like Javier Bardem standing right to, the right of him, I would much rather follow like somebody of the gravitas of like a Javier Bardem than I would ever follow anybody else. And I understand the nature of the books, which is talking about the dangers of like the white savior, because that's what the books speak about, because it's loosely based on like Lawrence of Arabia, yada, 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 yada. But my point being is that the believability is an issue. So this is also why Austin Butler suffers, right? Because he's doing his job in the film and he's doing a fine job. But then they have this like fight scene where there are no stakes. You don't feel the stakes. And the reason being is because I feel like, well, at least I just didn't care. I didn't care for the quote unquote hero. I didn't even care for, essentially if he was becoming an anti-hero, if he was slowly becoming the villain. You know what I'm saying? And if you look at a good example of this is that you brought up Dogtown and the Z-Boys earlier today, right? And if you look at those early sort of Heath Ledger films, right? Where he was doing like, it's not First Night. First Night is with Richard Gere. What is the film where he plays a knight? A Knight's Tale.
That's
A
the
Knight's
one.
Tale. You're looking at all of those. There's also the Shakespeare one. There's Casanova. You're seeing those type of films, which are, you know, you're earning your keep through those films before you kind of get to the Brokeback Mountains, before you get to the I Was Never Really There, before you get to like the Joker, before you get to like, Dr. Parnassus, where you have to put respect on his name. And I feel like a lot of the times Hollywood just feeds us names and say, you should care about these because they're the new, right? It's this recency bias. Now, coming to someone like Tom Cruise, right? We can safely say that his ilk and him himself is like one of the last great movie stars. And he sells movies on the basis of him being Tom Cruise.
Yeah, because he earned his keep.
My point exactly. So when he shows up as like Les Grossman in Tropic Thunder, you're tickled by it. Or when he shows up in like Magnolia, right? Or when he shows up and he's either turning up the acting chops as Vincent in Collateral, you're like, what is this?
Yeah, but he's also got such range. I mean, American Made, so funny, such a great character. And then speak about like Minority Report, and then Night and Day. Like, there's nothing Tom Cruise can't do except sit on a couch. He has to stand on a couch. It's a joke. It's an old joke. But I look up to him in such a big way because, the way that he speaks about the art of movie making and how he's just obsessed with every single facet of it. But I think one of the things that I appreciated so much about him as a performer is that he knows who he's making a film for.
Okay.
I think a lot of actors don't really know who they're making the film for, what the creation process is actually designed to do.
Tell me more about that. What do you mean by that?
Well, ultimately, it's for the person that's sitting there in the cinema, or this person that's sitting there hoping to get some sort of inspiration from the film. It's designed for people like us.
Okay. So
people like us watch movies like this because we need this, right?
I think I know what you're saying.
That's why movies have such an impact on everyone's lives, and that's why it has such power, is because it has the opportunity to really affect someone's day-to-day, to affect their mental, their emotional, their physical well-being. And I think that's really special, and it's something that he takes seriously.
The point that you're making is so fascinating, because when you say that, I imagine that Tom Cruise is thinking that he is part of the audience-going tribe. He is making a film not just for the audience, but he's making a film that he would want to watch as an audience member.
Sure.
Because that's the difference between him and, let's say, for instance, someone like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, right? Because Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, we spoke about this in an earlier podcast about being the people's champion, right?
But also, when we speak about the people's champion, in terms of people like us do things like this, the people are the WWE fans.
Yes.
They're not necessarily the moviegoer, which is why it doesn't always translate. With him as Black Adam, he wasn't the people's champion.
That's the point that I want to make, because he's always said that my boss is the fans. But you understand there's a difference between him and Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise doesn't think that the fans are his boss. He believes that he is the audience as well.
Yeah, but also
there's a difference.
Yeah, but I think it's, Dwayne really, like, his first love, and, because of his dad and all of that, his first love, his first audience, his first tribe are the WWE fans. And yes, some of them do watch movies, and that's great. That's how he was able to transition and become one of the biggest actors in Hollywood. But I think had he changed the mindset, he might have lost his previous tribe, where Tom Cruise is only really concentrated on people like us watch movies like this.
Tell me how he would have lost them. I'm intrigued by that, because Dwayne's career is interesting. I'm a Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson fan.
I love him too.
And his career is very interesting, right? Because he goes into Hollywood and he drops the moniker of The Rock, right?
Yeah.
He gets to about The Tooth Fairy, where people believe that he sold his soul to Disney.
It's because it was an awful film.
Yeah. And then what he does is he goes back into the agency because he gets bankrupted, right? And he says, I want Will Smith's career, but bigger. And they all laugh at him, right? And he's like, no. And he takes back the moniker of The Rock. He gets bigger again, because remember, there was that time we did The Tooth Fairy where he lost all that weight. He gets gigantically huge. Did I say used?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. He gets gigantically huge.
He might have.
Huge Jackman.
Yep. They used him to make money.
Funny enough, he helped Hugh Jackman get into shape for Wolverine. The Rock.
I'm saying.
And So he comes back, gets gigantic, becomes franchise Viagra for a long time. And now we're seeing a dip again in terms of his career.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's the ebbs and flows of life.
Mhm.
So this is also the thing is like, man, I heard this, man, Alex Hormozy, this guy who popped into my head. I even posted, I think today, I said, I'm so proud that to have him as one of my top 5, but I'll probably never meet him in person. Because Alex and I hang out every single day,
Yes, you do.
which is great. But he also said this one thing, which is amazing, and this is also speaks to the ebbs and flows. He said there's no such thing as cancel culture. He said cancel culture only happens when the person trying to be cancelled participates in the cancel culture. So this is the thing, is like he speaks of Kanye West. He's like, you cannot cancel Kanye because he's still relevant, because he tweets, because he creates content, and because he's still out there. There's still people that follow him. Yeah, he might lose a couple of followers here and there because he does eccentric things, but he hasn't been cancelled. The people that have been cancelled choose the cancel culture because they choose not to participate. They choose not to create content. They choose not to be out there. It's easier to just say, oh, well, woe is me. I'm going to go hide in my cave. That's when cancel culture really happens. And, the thing is like, speaking after Black Adam, I'm not saying that, obviously I'm not saying that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has been cancelled. It's just because, these ebbs and flows of all of our careers and our lives, sometimes we're going to, take a little bit of a backseat and we're not pushing forward, where we're not super relevant. And I think a lot of the superstars, they get used to this relevancy. I mean, we watched a Glenn Powell thing and he spoke about how, have you made it? Does it feel like life has changed? That always reminds me of, hey, it's your birthday. Do you feel older? Like,
But you got a great theory on that.
okay, no.
Yeah.
But this is also the thing is like, is if you choose to participate, you're always going to find a way. Because that's also what makes them some of the greatest, is because they've figured out a way. They figured out their brand. They figured out how to reinvent themselves. I mean, one of the most iconic reinventions of throughout history has been Madonna, and her music career has changed over the decades. She was just able to reinvent herself and become relevant again. Ebbs and flows. And it's remarkable. It's incredible. But this is also the thing, is like the story is not over until it's over.
Yeah.
And if you choose it to be over, then that's when it's done. But if you choose it not to be over, you can pivot.
Yeah.
Because also in business, when you talk about, you should know the difference between whether to push and whether to pivot. I think that also comes with a little bit of experience. But when you're on the rise, you push.
Yeah.
When you're on when you're headed at the top and you're at the crescent and you're now going down, potentially is continue to push, or it's time to pivot.
Yeah. That valley of despair, right? You talked to me about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Alex told me about that too.
Tell us about it. What does the valley of despair look like?
Well, it's really it's not necessarily the valley of despair. That's one component of the learning journey.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this epic euphoria as you discover something new and you're like, oh, wow, new idea, new business, whatever it is. And then as you hit the crescent, you hit this valley of despair that you realize how difficult it is. Okay. Here at the bottom of the valley of despair, you have two choices to make. Either to push through and then you hit the rise again, or you hit the lull, you change and you pivot, and then you go into your next elation cycle, right? So it looks like this. Ooh, cool idea, valley of despair. Oh, not going to carry on. So it goes, dips a little bit lower, and then you go, oh, this is really cool. This is exciting. And then valley of despair. Mm-hmm. So it never continues to go up. It continues to go down the whole time, because the valley of despair, you never overcome that. But once you go through that valley of despair, you start to come out the other side where you have informed elation, mm-hmm. right? Because previously you were just like, oh, well, this is new. You're blissfully ignorant. This is great. Yeah. Exactly. It's that bliss, right? So after the valley of despair, you have this informed elation. Then you can actually build to some sort of like real success, because you've overcome those things, and you're not going blindly. You're not going blindly into the dark night. You're just saying, oh, okay, cool. I've turned on a light and I can see the terrain now, because now I've stopped walking into things because I figured out where the light switch is. Yes, my knees are bruised, but at least I know where things are now.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that is you brought up Madonna, the sort of queen of reinvention.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating because she was actually one of the people that helped Ryan Reynolds and Sean Levy with Deadpool and Wolverine.
Amazing.
Yeah, when they approached her to license the song, which has become like the whole sort of third act. She was the one that was like, "This is what you do in order to make that scene better," and they were like, "Oh, interesting." So all the lessons that she's learned from failing quickly and failing often, and going through the valley of despair over and over, has kind of made her a veteran of being able to kind of see the landscape and going, "Oh, it's that." And that happens quite a lot, especially in filmmaking. Is you often look back at some of the scripts that you wrote or some of the scenes that you directed or things like that, and you go, "Oh, I was quite naive then. I was quite silly."
Indeed.
Which I find is funny. But interesting about old Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he's actually doing a movie with the Safdie brothers now called Smashing Machine, which is
Oh yeah, the MMA thing.
yes,
Oh yeah, I've seen him training for it. Looks
So-
so sick.
yeah, and that's the pivot, and I'm so happy that's happened for him because that's what he needed.
Can you imagine
Yeah.
if Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was in Iron Claw?
Jeez, I haven't seen that movie yet.
Me neither. But I mean, it's a movie that's made for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like, oh, okay, cool. There's a way to marry the two art forms
Yeah.
and to get the same audience, people like us, watch things like this.
Yeah.
To really just go, wow, the people's champion. Then he would truly be the people's champion.
Yeah.
But I think the pivot into MMA is interesting. I don't think it's going to land so well, and that's just that's just my premonition. I can't think of the right word now.
but why?
No, man. It's a different audience. It's a different people like us do things like this. It's a different people like us watch things like this. It's a different ballgame. You go to, I mean, I'm a huge WWE fan. I even went when I was a kid when they came out one time. And the theatrics of it all is amazing. But MMA fighters are built differently.
Oh, yeah,
I can't watch MMA because they're brutes. And I'm terrified of them. And I don't want to watch them fucking blitzing each other. I don't want to do it. But I can watch WWE because, yeah, sometimes, sometimes things go awry when stunt performers are doing their things.
Yeah.
But we still know that it's a show.
Yeah.
We're there to watch a show, right? Which is why Dwayne can be the people's champion, because they like the show. It's entertainment.
Yeah.
WWE, right? Not
Yeah.
WWF anymore.
Yeah.
World Wrestling Entertainment.
Yeah.
Right.
They share more DNA than you would actually realize.
No.
I mean, they're owned by the same company, the Zuffer.
That does not mean that's like saying, oh, I've got two children, they're exactly the same.
No,
No, they're not. One is the middle child and is weird and hits everyone because he gets ignored. Then the other one is the youngest and is just happy-go-lucky and is just there because it's lekker and you can be entertained by this kid.
But here's the thing, right? So Dana White said this quite interestingly enough. He said, "I'm not in the fight business. I'm in the holy fuck business." So I create holy fuck moments and I document them. And basically that's what WWE is built on. It's built on those like big shareable moments. And if you look at it, UFC or Bellator, or whatever the case is, or even ONE FC, is very much about storylines. People don't invest in the fighting. I actually maintain that UFC is less a sport than it is a show. And if you actually look at the history of the UFC,
Listen, you'll know more about this than I would.
I understand.
That's just, from my high-level overview.
Yeah.
I just don't like seeing people hit each other.
I get that.
It's 2024, man. Like, why are we still like gladiators? This is modern day gladiators. They're literally hitting each other.
Well, look, it's sort of inner peace through outer violence.
And also,
because
like, my worst is like someone gets cracked, and they hit the dick. And then you can see he's out. And then this fucking nightmare of a human just jumps on top of them and fucking pummels them on the floor. This bro can't even fucking see. And then this oak is fucking just going fucking side on. Fucking just fuck you.
But the crazy
Like
thing,
fucking kneading him like he's bread or something.
well, that's why they call it being starched. Right.
Starched.
Yeah, here's the
So hectic.
my thing is, having known quite a bit of MMA fighters, they're some of the sweetest people on earth.
Yeah, because they got mud.
Well, because they can.
Yeah, like also look at the most successful people. They've got these wild stories of oppression and injustice. That's why they're like, I will rise above it all. They're beautiful, lekker story. But they got moved into submission, and they said, no, I will not submit. I will rise above this. And of course, they're going to be nice because someone's pushed them in the side of the head.
That brings back my point about Timothy Shamalama Ding Dong. Like,
But no one's hit him. He should go do
Someone
an
should.
MMA film.
yeah. My point being is life experience. What makes great art I mean, if you compare him to someone
We've spoken
like,
about this
yeah,
before. It's like, it's the artist's affliction.
Yeah.
Is that in order to really see depth in someone, they like the only thing that matures you is trauma in some way, shape, or form.
yeah, look at Barry Keoghan, right? Look at that monster of a young actor. And no one's shoving him down our throats. He's like in films with like, old Colin Farrell and what's his name from In Bruges. Those, I think it's called The Knights of Inisherin or something like that. And I love that. I love those type of choices. It's kind of like what Johnny Depp did, right? When Johnny Depp came out and people were like, oh my goodness, he's such a heartthrob. And he was like, nope. And he pivoted.
Yeah, I was like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
It's his hands. I go, okay, cool. Good for you.
Exactly. And if you follow that metric as an actor, and I want to know from you if this is correct, it actually yields to much better results than being shoved down somebody's throat. Because even if you look at someone like Channing Tatum, right? Channing Tatum comes out, people are like, oh, he's a wooden actor, he can't act, yada, yada, yada. And he pivots, right? He does a really great thing. I think it's After Public Enemies. He works with, I think that's Michael Mann. And he pivots, right? And he does the wrestling film with Steve Carell, which is fantastic. He does the comedy stuff with Jonah Hill, right? And Jonah Hill speaks about this. He says, I approached Channing Tatum and he goes, people need to find out how funny you are.
He's amazing. He's hilarious.
Absolutely. And he does that, and very quickly, like dudes start to gravitate towards Channing Tatum. It's like Brad Pitt in Thelma and Louise, where he shows up with these ridiculous abs, like, and people are like, who is this guy? Like, stuff him, right? He's making me feel self-conscious. And then what does he do, right? He does Legends of the Fall. All the women fall in love with him, and they're like, all the men are like, stuff this guy. And then he goes off and he does a couple of films where, like 12 Monkeys, he does like Fight Club, and all of a sudden people are like, all the men are like, dude, Brad Pitt. I mean, this morning, Melissa said to me, what's that movie with John Bernthal and Shia LaBeouf? And I was like, Fury. I was like, Brad Pitt's in that. She's like, I don't care for Brad Pitt. And I was like, he's the Pitt.
How dare you?
He's the Pitt.
How dare you?
You did not insult the Pitt. He's sacrosanct. He's the Holy of Holies.
I love Brad.
He's the Pitt of Holies.
I love him.
Can we call him that?
Yeah, you can call him whatever you like.
The Holy Pitt.
He's so handsome. It's stupid.
It's ridiculous. Dude.
So stupid.
Yeah, but again, right? Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, that caliber. They did
also,
these things where they pivoted away from the limelight.
But also, the filmography that they both got behind their names, something stupid, like over like 100 films each. Like, and these are some massive films, some not so massive films. But the thing is they're still getting the reps in. And I think this is also the thing is like, we don't have an industry here in South Africa that allows people to get the reps in. I think that's also something that I'm feeling, that I want to get the reps in. And it's not necessarily just about, to be famous because, famous is, I don't know. I was seeing this, I watched this one thing on Instagram, and this chick is trying to sell you this method to become famous. And I was like, oh, okay, good for you.
What was it?
And I don't know. It's one of those that's behind a paywall, so you have to buy her course or something like that.
Oh, that's
cool because, whatever. But the post was like, being famous solves a lot of problems. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. But also the thing is, it's like, I don't believe that fame is valuable.
It's not. It's a byproduct of success.
Correct. Which is why, chasing money is futile. Because if you're chasing money, you're chasing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we've spoken about the hot girl theory, a couple of times before. I can't remember what episode it is. Go listen to every single thing that we've ever made. Okay. But the thing is like, I'm figuring it out now is I'm asking different questions. I'm asking like, what is the root of this? And I think mostly it's just about value. And I think the actors that we really look up to is they've proven their worth because their value proposition is correct.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
They went, Alex Hormozy, you were in my brain. Alex said this literally yesterday. I was listening to another one of his podcasts, and he was talking about going all in on the inputs and being patient with the outputs. And that's what all of these actors have done. That's what previous traditions, that's what previous versions of life looked like before instant gratification.
Yes.
Is they went all in on the inputs, which means that their value creation was intact. And then they were patient with their outputs. Right? Most of us these days, especially like us living in this digital age, is we're so impatient with the inputs, right? So we try, But because we're impatient with the outputs, we hit that valley of despair and we don't push through.
Yeah.
Because we want an outcome right now instead of just allowing the outcome to reveal itself and concentrating on what's important, right? Money is, yes, it's important, but it's not the be all and end all.
Yeah.
Right? In order to receive that byproduct, you need to concentrate on what the root is, and the root is value.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that the digital age is not helping us with.
Yeah.
And now with like 8 billion people on this planet, and we're so much more lost than we have been before. Like, what is my purpose? Maybe I should become famous, or teach a course on how to teach people to become famous. Yes. Like, it's so weird, man. It's so weird.
We live in an attention economy. Everyone's vying for the attention and trying to get paid for it. And that's where the fame part comes in. And it's really with, sort of starlets like the Kardashians that we've gotten into this weird distortion matrix that we think that that's what success looks like, where you're like, oh, I'm making $300 million a year. And it's like, at what cost?
But that isn't their thing. That's the top of their funnel, remember? That's their attention. That's the top of the funnel. That's just for people. That's their awareness campaign. They're geniuses. So listen, I don't watch the show, but what they did was genius, right? They created this crazy awareness campaign around them, but that's not their long game.
Yeah.
So they went all in on their inputs and the awareness campaign. They created a TV show around them, but each one of them has businesses.
Yeah.
So their awareness campaigns trickle down,
and
right?
business. Yeah.
Genius. Whoever was their business consultants, just fucking
the
genius. So if that's something that you're thinking about, how do I get into this game? Whatever it is, double down on the value, create a TV show around that. Yes, unfortunately, we have to do that. Look at us having a podcast with a camera watching us.
It's a TV show.
It is a TV show.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, just it's an awareness campaign. And also it's so funny. Seth Godin, back to Seth Godin. Everything that we do, organic creation, content creation, it's all brand marketing. Do you know the difference between brand marketing and direct marketing?
Tell me, oh, wise one.
Brand marketing is something you cannot measure.
Okay.
Right? It's something that you put out into the world that has value to your business, but you cannot measure it. Okay. Direct marketing is a direct result of the internet, because you can directly monitor who's clicking on something, right? So you can measure that. That's a KPI you can measure. That's a key performance indicator. So anything that you can measure is considered direct marketing. Anything that you cannot measure, like billboards, like TV commercials, ads in the paper, word of mouth, that's brand marketing.
Okay.
Right? It's goodwill marketing, for want of a better word.
Sure.
But anything that can be directly measured, which is anything that's on the internet. Because if you put an ad out on Facebook and people click on it and they go to your website, you can monitor who clicked on the ad and who went to the website.
Yeah.
Then you can also say who went onto the website and clicked on the deal and actually converted with the purchase, right? Conversion metrics.
Yeah.
So that's direct marketing. Yes, you use elements of brand marketing in direct marketing, which is why it becomes a little crazy. But that's the idea, is that for your business.
Yeah, I think that's what's sort of collectively become known as digital marketing, that measurability, all of those types of things, simply because you can essentially equate and quantify it.
But the thing is, the technical term is called direct marketing.
I always thought that direct marketing was, sort of like activations, but I guess I'm speaking from a traditional approach.
Activations is brand marketing.
Really?
Unless there are conversions.
Oh, interesting.
Because the thing is like you're raising awareness for your brand, right? And you're giving away free samples. Brand marketing. It's not direct marketing, because you're not actively getting sales. Yes, you could monitor some of those KPIs in something like an activation if you're selling something there.
Yeah.
Sure, you can.
Yeah.
So that's an amalgamation of the two.
Yeah.
But if you're thinking about, oh, cool, I want to put out some copy on Twitter. I want to put out some copy and some creative on Instagram or whatever. Yes, you can kind of measure that with the amount of likes, but you cannot directly measure how it has affected the actual business.
Okay. And how does this relate to the Kardashians?
Because they know what brand marketing is, which is their awareness campaign, which is their TV show, right? Which then supported their actual business, which is the direct marketing, which is they said, I've got a makeup brand, I've got a clothing brand, I've got a this, I've got a that. And then they're using their awareness campaign, they're raising their status, right? Building their fame. And then they translated that into their business.
Which
so
essentially cuts
how
down
this
their
translates
cycle.
to them
Yeah.
is they understood what the value creation system is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because in business, there are 6 systems, right? Your leadership system, your value creation system, your marketing system, your sales system, your organization system, and your financial system, right?
Fantastic.
6 of them.
Mm.
And they understood the top 2, right?
Yeah.
The leadership system affects everything else,
Yeah.
right? They got their heads right. They understood what needed to come next, and so they didn't really listen to the naysayers and all of that, and they carried on.
Yeah.
Which allowed them to create value.
Yeah.
And with that value, they were able to talk to the right people like us, watch things like this,
Mhm.
right? Then they were able, from that, to convert into their sales system. And then from that, their operation system or their organizational system, they were able to look at all the other systems and optimize, which then leads to them into their financial system, which then supports all the other systems.
So if you actually look at it, right, if you look at the South African context of actors, they're stuck in the top 2 problems.
No,
They're just mugging for attention, but never really converting anything.
well, all South African actors, I mean, at least the ones that I've spoken to a lot, suffer with the first system. They haven't got their leadership system intact.
And how do they fix that?
Oh, man, talk to a mate, go find someone to speak to, go for a walk in the park. It's really just about self-talk, right?
Yeah.
What kind of person are you? What do you stand for? Those kinds of things. So it's really difficult. I don't have a miracle pill for it. I can't say, well, this is how you solve your leadership system. That's why the motivation industry is so huge.
Yeah.
That's why the self-help self-help industry is an entire industry in itself, because we haven't figured it out. Right?
Yeah.
I can't just say to you, hey, do this and all your problems will be solved. Also, Alex Hormozy, this guy's always on my brain.
He's such a
specifically talking to men, Alex says that 90% of male problems, and obviously he's speaking to like heterosexual males, and not necessarily heterosexual males, but males in general, is if you train your body and you get fit and strong and you make money.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 biggest things that you need to solve, and then everything else you can figure out in the process.
Yeah.
It alleviates so much of your pain and your pain points and your struggle if you solve those 2 things.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like, that's also part of your leadership system. So training, what are you eating? Because it's so intricate, and that's why, figuring out your leadership system is so important, because without it, nothing else can fit into place.
I want to ask you about,
if you don't have anything in your leadership system, last thing about that, and you try and create something of value, but there's no meat and potatoes behind it, no one else will feel the value, because it won't feel authentic, because your leadership system is fucked.
Yeah. So I want to ask you about that, right? Because we've spoken about The Rock, we've spoken about all of these aspects. And I really hope that Smashing Machine for The Rock is very much like Uncut Gems was for Adam Sandler.
Still haven't watched that either.
It's fantastic.
Just holding on to my Adam Sandler fantasy that he's just funny and awesome.
He is.
I know that he's a great actor too. I haven't even seen the film where he's an astronaut yet.
Oh yeah, me neither. Melissa just watched that. She said it's phenomenal.
I'm sure it's amazing, but also he paid his dues. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't think, because you can do both, right? You can do the stand-up, because he's currently got the stand-up going, which is called Love You, which is on Netflix. Yet to watch it. And he's also got Spaceman. And, you can have all these things. You can still be The Rock and do Smashing Machine. And that's all I wanted for The Rock. But my question being is that, The Rock was always promoting this, focus, stay hard, like big muscles, make money. So those 2 things that Alex Hormozy has just said. I saw Trevor Noah and Simon Sinek chatting to one another about 2 days ago. And he was talking about young men being lonely and angry. Now, I don't want to talk about the lonely bit. I want to talk about the angry bit, right? Because I see a lot of young men, and particularly a lot of videos these days, you got like the Sigma sort of videos and those type of things where it's always sort of encouragement to work on your body and like F women and whatever. Like, we don't care.
I hate those videos.
I hear you. And this is what I want to speak to, because if you do take care of those 2 things, right? Is it that men are ultimately being misunderstood as angry in that space if they take care of those? Or is it because the focus is solely just on that and not on the other factors, which I think you have a plenty to focus on, that men are ultimately just becoming too vain in that space? It's becoming like self-aggrandizing. So I make money and I work out to make money and work out. So then you get stuck in the persona of the Rock constantly, and you're not doing the other things like being the Rock would, like he is with his daughter, the Rock like he is with his wife, those facets. And is it unfair that society looks at young men as angry when they could be just misunderstood?
Well, no, I mean, I believe that the young men are angry because they're not going all in on the inputs and being patient with their outputs.
Okay, how do they work that? Because I get that, because you and I are friends and we talk about this quite a
I
bit.
mean, we've been talking about this for years now.
Absolutely.
6 years now.
And we've just started to realize this.
You know what?
Yeah.
I think this deserves some attention. So we're going to keep you holding on until next week. Thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast of the Handsome Mansome podcast. We'll get into this next week. I think this is really important, and how we can unpack this, because there's a couple of things that we should probably talk about, and I think it'll be super valuable to everyone watching. Thank you so much for joining us. Anyways, from me, Richard, thank you so much for joining us, and
My name is Waleed.
we'll catch you next week.
Myself.